My brother stole 7 years of my life with a single phone call, and he didn't even have the decency to sound sorry when he did it. I need to start at the beginning, or at least the beginning of the end, because context is the only thing that makes this story believable. My name is David. I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life, I thought I understood the shape of my family. I thought we were a unit, flawed but fundamentally solid. My older brother, Ethan, was the architect of that illusion. Growing up in a small coastal town in Oregon, it was always just the three of us after our father left when I was 6. My mother, a woman whose love language was worry and whose primary occupation was survival, worked double shifts as a nurse to keep a roof over our heads. This meant Ethan, for years my senior, became my de facto caretaker. He was my protector, my guide, and my hero. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to throw a punch, and how to lie to Mom about where we'd been. He had this effortless charm, a way of looking at you that made you feel like you were the only person in the world. People gravitated toward him. He was a sun, and I was more than happy to be a planet in his orbit. Our mother, Margaret, was a different story. She was a fortress built from exhaustion and fear. After our dad left, she poured all her anxiety into us, a constant, low-level hum of worry that became the background music of our childhood. She loved us, I know she did, but her love was a cage built with good intentions. She needed us close, needed to control the variables, because the one time she hadn't, her husband had walked out the door. Ethan chafed against her rules. He lied and snuck out with practiced ease that I both admired and feared. I, on the other hand, became the peacekeeper. I learned to read a room the way a sailor reads the sky, anticipating storms before they hit. I stayed quiet, got good grades, and tried to be the son who wouldn't add to her burden. I was the anchor, while Ethan was the sail, always straining to catch the next wind, no matter where it led. This dynamic followed us into adulthood. After high school, Ethan chased a girl to Los Angeles, bouncing between odd jobs and get-rich-quick schemes that never quite panned out. He'd call me late at night, his voice buzzing with excitement about a new business venture, a food truck, a mobile detailing service, a crypto startup, that always seemed to fizzle out a few months later. I stayed close at home, putting myself through a state college and then law school, driven by a need for stability and order that had always been missing. I became a corporate attorney, a job that was as boring as it was secure. My life was a series of well-organized folders, each one neatly labeled and under control. The job that was supposed to change everything came 5 years ago. It wasn't just a promotion. It was a siren's call from a different world. A boutique international law firm in San Francisco, Pearson & Hale, specialized in maritime and environmental law. It was my niche, the area I'd pour my soul into during countless late nights of study. They handled cases that mattered, oil spill litigations, protection of marine sanctuaries, international fishing rights. The position they offered me was for a senior associate, a role that would put me on a partnership track and allow me to work on cases that felt like they had real purpose. I had dreamed of a job like this since my 3rd year of law school. It was the perfect intersection of my skills and my passions. I was 30 years old and felt like I was finally about to step onto the stage I'd been building my entire life. The interview process was grueling. 4 rounds of interviews, a writing sample, a full-day assessment. When they called to offer me the position, I was at my desk in my old firm, staring at a brief about a zoning dispute. I remember the California sun was streaming through the window, and for a second, the whole world felt warm and golden. I called my mom first. She cried, a mix of pride and her usual fear about me moving further away. Then I called Ethan. He was living in San Diego at the time, managing a surf shop for a friend, and, from what I could gather, running some kind of side hustle selling vintage clothing online. His voice, when he answered, was distracted. "Davy, hey." kind of in the middle of something. I couldn't contain my excitement. I got the job, the one in San Francisco. Pearson and Hale. I start in 3 weeks. There was a pause on the line, a beat of silence that was just a little too long. "Oh, yeah? The big environmental law thing?" he said, his tone flat. "That's great, man. Good for you." I deflated slightly. "Yeah, it's huge. It's everything I've been working for." "Working for," he repeated, and I could almost hear him shrug. "Well, don't get too comfortable. Those big shot firms chew people up and spit them out all the time. You're not exactly cutthroat material, little brother." I laughed it off, as I always did. Thanks for the vote of confidence. "I'm just keeping it real," he said. "Someone has to. Hey, I gotta go. We'll talk later. And Davy, try not to be too insufferable about it. Okay? It's just a job." It was just a job. That was a summation of my life's dream. I hung up, the golden feeling slightly tarnished. But I shook it off. That was just Ethan. He was a little jealous. Maybe. It was fine. Everything was fine. The next 2 weeks were a blur of tying up loose ends. I gave my notice at my old firm, started packing my small apartment, and found a sublet in San Francisco. I was riding a high, a feeling of finally arriving. Then, 5 days before I was supposed to start, I got the email. No, that's not accurate. I got a phone call. My cell phone rang, and the caller ID showed the main line for Pearson and Hale. I answered with a smile, expecting to finalize some details about my start date. David Miller speaking. "Mr. Miller, this is Angela Rose from Human Resources." Her voice was crisp, professional, and utterly devoid of warmth. It was a voice used delivering bad news. "I'm calling regarding your offer of employment." My smile faltered. "Yes. After a final review of your candidacy, the firm has decided to rescind the offer." The words didn't make sense. They were just a collection of sounds. I'm sorry, I don't understand. Is there a problem? Did something happen with the background check? I can explain anything." "It's not the standard background check, Mr. Miller." She cut me off, her tone clipped. "We received a communication from a family member that raised serious, irreconcilable concerns about your fitness for this role." My blood turned to ice. A family member. What kind of communication? What do they say? She hesitated, and I could picture her glancing at a script, deciding how much to share. The email detailed a long-standing pattern of behavior that is incompatible with the values and responsibilities of this firm. It mentioned issues with gambling, significant personal debt accrued from it, and a history of misappropriating funds from family members to cover those debts. Given the sensitive nature of the cases we handle and the level of financial trust required for this position, we have no choice but to withdraw the offer. The decision is final. Gambling, debt, stealing from family. It was so absurd, so utterly detached from the reality of my life, that for a moment I couldn't even form a response. I'd never placed a bet in my life more significant than a $20 poker game with friends. I had no debt other than my student loans, which were meticulously managed. I had never, ever taken a dime from anyone. Those are lies. I finally managed, my voice hoarse, every single one of them. I can prove it. I can get you bank statements, credit reports, character references. Please, just give me a chance to clear this up. I'm sorry, Mr. Miller. The decision has been made, and we have already extended an offer to another candidate. We wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the hollow hum of the dial tone. My entire future, the dream I had cradled in my hands for weeks, had been shattered by a lie. And I knew, with a certainty that settled into my bones like frost, exactly who had told it. I drove to San Diego that night. It was a 9-hour drive I don't really remember. A blur of white lines and red taillights and a roaring in my ears. I found Ethan at the surf shop, just closing up for the night. He looked surprised to see me. Then his face settled into that familiar, infuriating mask of casual indifference. "Davy, what are you doing here? Thought you'd be packing for your big move to the city." I didn't say a word. I just walked up to him and punched him as hard as I could in the gut. He doubled over, wheezing, and stumbled back against the counter. A part of me, the part that had once worshipped him, was horrified. The rest of me felt nothing but a cold, righteous fury. "You stole my life," I hissed, my voice shaking. "Pearson and Hale. You sent them an email, you bastard." He straightened up, rubbing his stomach. A grimace of pain and something else, a flicker of satisfaction, on his face. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look surprised. "I was trying to help you." I stared at him, dumbfounded. "Help me? You just cost me my dream job." "You were getting in over your head, Davy," he said, his voice taking on a patronizing tone that made my blood boil. "That world, those people, they would have eaten you alive. You're too soft. You have crashed and burned in 6 months. It would have been 1,000,000 times worse. I just expedited the process. I gave you a soft landing." "A soft landing?" I yelled, my voice echoing in the empty shop. "You sabotaged me. You lied. You told them I was a gambling addict, a thief." He shrugged, a gesture so nonchalant it was more devastating than any insult. "It was just a story. A little white lie to get them to back off. No one got hurt. You'll find another job. You always land on your feet." "No one got hurt?" The words felt like acid in my mouth. "You destroyed my reputation with that firm. You made me look like a criminal. And you don't even care." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something cold and hard behind his eyes. It wasn't the brother I'd grown up with. It was a stranger. "Look," he said, his voice dropping. "The world doesn't just hand things to you, Davy. You have to take them. You were getting too big for your britches, acting like you were better than everyone. You needed to be reminded of your place. Now, are we done here? I have to lock up." I stood there, staring at this person I thought I knew. There was no remorse, no guilt, no understanding of the magnitude of what he'd done. To him, my life was just a plaything, a thing to be nudged and shaped to fit his own narrative. I walked out of that shop and didn't look back. That was the last time I spoke to my brother for 5 years. The fallout was catastrophic. Not just the loss of the job, but the loss of my momentum, my confidence. I was adrift. I stayed in my old job, but I went through the motions like a ghost. The fire was gone. Every time I thought about my career, I saw Ethan's face, that cold, indifferent look, and the ambition curdled into something bitter. I met Anna a year later. She was a graphic designer who worked in the building across from my office. We'd see each other at the same coffee shop every morning. She was calm, steady, and had a laugh that could cut through the foggiest of my moods. She was the opposite of the chaos I'd grown up with. For 2 years, we dated, building a quiet, stable life together. She knew about Ethan, about what he'd done. She was the only one I ever told the full story to. She listened without judgment, held my hand when the anger flared up again, and helped me see that my future wasn't defined by my brother's cruelty. When I proposed, she said yes, and we started planning our wedding. It was going to be small, maybe 100 people, at a beautiful old lighthouse-turned venue on the Oregon coast, not far from where I grew up. It felt symbolic, a reclaiming of my past in a place that held some of my few good childhood memories. My mother, Margaret, was overjoyed about the wedding. It was a perfect opportunity to rebuild, she said, to have her boys together again. From the moment we announced the engagement, she began her campaign. "You have to invite your brother, David," she'd say, her voice a mixture of pleading and steel. "It's a wedding. Family comes together at weddings. It's a time for forgiveness." I tried to explain. I told her the whole story again, the job, the lie, the utter lack of remorse. She'd listen, her face a mass of distress, and then she'd say, "But he's your brother. He made a mistake. People make mistakes. You have to be the bigger person." My mother's reality was a place where conflict could be erased by the word family. It was a survival mechanism she'd built after my father left. To admit that one of her children was capable of real, deliberate cruelty would be to admit that her entire worldview, her fortress of anxious love, was built on sand. So she chose the comfortable lie over the painful truth. My father, who had re-entered our lives in a peripheral way a few years prior, was even worse. He and my mother had never remarried, but they developed a strange post-divorce friendship, bonding over their shared concern for their children. He was a quiet man, a retired fisherman, who seemed to spend his whole life avoiding confrontation. He'd just nod along with my mother, adding his own 2 cents. "Life's too short for grudges, son. Let bygones be bygones." They didn't get it. They couldn't. This wasn't a grudge. This was a scar. Anna was my rock. She saw the toll their pressure was taking on me. "This is our day, David." She'd remind me, "You get to decide who shares it with us. You don't owe anyone a seat at our table, especially not someone who tried to destroy you." 3 months before the wedding, my mother called me, her voice thick with false hope. "Ethan wants to come, David. He told me he's so happy for you. He wants to make amends." My hand tightened on the phone. "He can make amends by staying away. He's not invited, Mom. That's final. David, please." "No, Mom. I mean it. If you bring him, or if he shows up, I will have him removed. I don't care how it looks. I don't care what anyone thinks. This is my boundary. You need to respect it." There was a long, hurt silence on the other end. "I just don't understand you anymore," she whispered, and hung up. In the weeks that followed, the pressure eased slightly. My mother's calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, she carefully avoided the subject of Ethan. I allowed myself to believe, foolishly, that she had finally accepted my decision. I should have known better. My mother's love had always been a force of nature, and like any force of nature, it didn't recognize boundaries. It just looked for a way around them. The wedding day was perfect. The Oregon coast delivered a rare, glorious day in late September. The sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, and the ocean crashed against the rocks below the lighthouse with a rhythmic, soothing roar. White chairs were set up on the grassy headland, facing a simple arbor draped with wildflowers, and it looked breathtaking. She walked down the aisle towards me, and for those few minutes, the world contracted to just her face, her smile, the love in her eyes. We said our vows, the words feeling more real and powerful than any legal document I'd ever drafted. We were married. The ceremony ended, and we moved to the reception area, a large, glass-walled room in the lighthouse keeper's house, with panoramic views of the Pacific. The champagne was flowing. The band was playing softly, and our guests were mingling and laughing. It was without question the happiest day of my life. The happiness lasted for exactly 2 hours. We were in the middle of our first dance when my best man, my friend Kevin from law school, tapped me on the shoulder. His face was pale. "David, you need to come to the entrance. Right now." My heart plummeted. I just knew. I excused myself from Anna, whose smile had faded, and walked through the crowd of happy guests towards the main doors. As I got closer, I could hear my mother's voice, high-pitched and nervous, and another voice, a man's voice, smooth and familiar, like a melody from a nightmare. I pushed open the door, and there they were, My mother, dressed in an elegant navy blue dress, her face a desperate mix of hope and defiance. My father, standing behind her, looking at his shoes. And next to them, Ethan. He looked older, thinner. The easy charm was still there, but it was worn, frayed at the edges. His smile when he saw me was a practice thing, a mask he slipped on. Hey, little brother, congratulations. I didn't say a word. I just looked at my mother. I let all the years of hurt, all the times I'd explained, all the pleas for understanding, show on my face. David, please, she started, her voice trembling. He's your brother. He drove all this way. Can't we just have one day of peace? For me. One day of peace, I repeated, my voice low and hard. He cost me my career, my dream, my peace for 5 years. And you brought him here, to my wedding, after I explicitly told you not to. My father finally looked up. Now, son, let's not make a scene. People are watching. I don't care who's watching, I said, my voice rising. I want you all to leave. Now. Ethan laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. Still dramatic, I see. Come on, Davy. It was years ago. Get over it. I'm here to support you. Can't you just be a gracious host? Get out. I pointed toward the parking lot. My mother stepped forward, reaching for my arm. David, no. We're not leaving. This is a family event, and we are your family. You're being unreasonable. The commotion was starting to draw attention. Guests were peering out from the reception hall, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. The band had stopped playing. I could feel the perfect day I'd built cracking apart. I'm not going to ask again, I said, pulling my phone from my pocket. I didn't think. I just acted. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I'm at the Point Reyes Lighthouse venue. I have 3 individuals who are trespassing and refusing to leave my private event. My mother gasped. My father's face went slack with shock. Ethan's smirk faltered for a second, then returned, harder this time. You're calling the cops on your own family? On your mother? You're pathetic. I ended the call. We stood there in a terrible, silent tableau. The 5 of us, the only sounds the distant crash of the waves and the hushed whispers of my guests. It felt like an eternity, but it was probably only 10 minutes before the familiar, flashing red and blue lights appeared at the entrance to the venue. 2 officers got out, a man and a woman. They approached us with calm, professional caution. We received a call about trespassing. Yes, officer. I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm the groom. These 3 individuals were not invited to my wedding. I have asked them repeatedly to leave, and they have refused. The female officer turned to my parents and Ethan. Sir, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises. My parents started to comply. My father already turning towards the car, but Ethan planted his feet. This is a public venue. You can't just throw us out. This is my brother's wedding. It's a private event, sir, and you have been asked to leave by the person in charge. If you don't leave voluntarily, you'll be arrested for trespassing. My mother, seeing her chance to avoid a complete catastrophe, grabbed Ethan's arm. Come on, Ethan, let's just go. We'll talk later. But Ethan shook her off. He was enjoying this. I realized with a jolt of disgust. He was the center of attention, the cause of the drama. I'm not going anywhere. Arrest me. Go ahead. Arrest me for trying to see my own brother get married. This is ridiculous. The officers exchanged a look. The male officer stepped forward. Sir, this is your final warning. Make your choice, officer. Ethan sneered. The female officer reached for her radio. I'm going to need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back. She spoke into the radio, requesting backup and running his name. There was a moment of tense silence. Then, the radio crackled back to life. The officer listened, her expression shifting. She looked at Ethan with a new, sharper focus. "Ethan Miller?" she asked, her voice now carrying a different weight. "Yeah, that's me. What of it?" She turned to her partner and said something quietly. The male officer's posture changed, becoming more alert. He moved closer to Ethan. "Ethan Miller, you are under arrest for outstanding warrants related to fraud and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent." The words hung in the air, sharp and stunning. My mother screamed. My father lurched forward. "What? No, there's a mistake." But there was no mistake. The officers moved swiftly, grabbing Ethan's arms. For the first time, the smirk vanished from his face, replaced by a look of genuine panic. "This is crazy. They're lying. It's a mix-up." As they tried to cuff him, he struggled. It wasn't a violent struggle, more a frantic, desperate attempt to twist away. My mother, hysterical, grabbed onto his arm, trying to pull him free. "Let him go. He didn't do anything." The female officer warned her to step back. She didn't. My father, seeing my mother in distress, stepped in, placing himself between her and the officers, his voice raised in anger. In the chaos, the situation spiraled. Within seconds, both my parents were also being handcuffed for interfering with an arrest for obstructing justice. I stood there, the groom in my tuxedo, and watched as my entire family was loaded into the back of two separate police cruisers. My mother was sobbing. My father looked old and broken. And Ethan, the golden boy, the son I had once orbited, was staring at me through the window of the car, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. The cruisers pulled away, their lights still flashing, disappearing down the coastal road. The silence they left behind was deafening. I turned around. Every single one of my guests was standing there, frozen, watching me. I saw shock, pity, and morbid curiosity on their faces. Anna was walking towards me, her beautiful dress swishing in the grass, her face etched with concern. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the shock. Maybe it was the absolute, crushing humiliation. But as she reached me, I looked at all those faces, the remnants of our perfect day, and I couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear the thought of the whispers, the questions, the pitying glances for the rest of the evening. I took a shaky breath and raised my voice. "I'm so sorry, everyone. The wedding, it's over. Please, just go home. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry." There was a collective, awkward murmur. People started to gather their things, casting furtive glances our way. Anna grabbed my arm. "David, what are you doing? You don't have to do this. We can still—" "No, Anna," I whispered, my voice cracking. I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't spend the rest of the night making small talk. I need everyone to go." And they did. They filed out, a stream of confused and disappointed guests, until the reception hall was empty, the half-eaten cake sitting forlornly on the table, the champagne going flat in the glasses. Anna and I stood alone in the ruins of our wedding, the sound of the waves our only companion. That was a week ago, a week of chaos, of phone calls, of lawyers, of a pain so deep it felt physical. My parents were released on bail the next day, their charges reduced to misdemeanors, but the damage was done. Ethan, however, remained in custody. The charges against him were serious. Over the past few years, it turned out he had been running an elaborate online scam, creating fake personas to defraud elderly people out of their retirement savings. The warrant was from a multi-state investigation that had finally caught up with him. The charming brother, who could never hold down a job, had found a career, after all. He was just a thief. The calls from my parents started immediately. Voicemail after voicemail. Text after text. They were a broken record of blame and denial. How could you do this to us? We're your parents. You've ruined your brother's life. He's going to prison because of you. You need to drop the charges against us. This is your fault. You called the police. My mother's messages were the worst. They alternated between tearful pleas and furious accusations. In her mind, the story had already been rewritten. I wasn't the victim of a decades-long pattern of manipulation. I was the villain who had sicked the police on his own family at his wedding. My father, in his few messages, just sounded tired and bewildered, asking me to make this right. I stopped responding after the first day. There was nothing to say. They had made their choice again and again, and now they were facing the consequences. The hardest part was a call from one of my aunts, my mother's sister, who had always been like a second mom to me. Her voice was full of concern. "David, honey, I just heard. This is all just terrible. Your mother is a wreck. She says you won't talk to her. Can't you just find it in your heart to forgive them? They were just trying to have their family together." I took a deep breath. "Aunt Sue, did my mother tell you why I didn't invite Ethan? Did she tell you that he sabotaged my career with a lie that cost me a job I dreamed of my whole life? Did she tell you that he showed up anyway, and when I asked him to leave, he refused, and then it turned out he's a wanted criminal?" There was a long pause on the other end. "Well, no. She just said you had a falling out, that you were being stubborn." The falling out was him destroying my life. Aunt Sue. And they knew everything, and they brought him to my wedding anyway. I didn't do this to them. They did it to themselves. She was quiet for a moment longer. "Oh, honey, I didn't know. I'm so sorry. That was the last time anyone from my family called to pressure me. My aunt must have spread the word, because the calls stopped. A strange, uneasy silence fell. Anna and I spent the week in a bubble. We canceled our honeymoon, a trip to Hawaii we'd been planning for months. We just stayed in our apartment, ate takeout, and talked. We talked about everything. About my childhood, about Ethan, about my parents' desperate, destructive love. We cried together. We got angry together. And slowly, piece by piece, we started to put ourselves back together. We made a decision. We weren't going to let the ruined wedding be our defining memory. We took the small amount of money we had left, about a third of what we'd originally budgeted, and we planned a new ceremony. It wasn't going to be at a lighthouse. It was going to be at City Hall. The following Thursday, on a crisp, sunny morning, Anna and I got married. It was just the two of us, Kevin as our witness, and Anna's parents, who had flown in from Arizona. There were no flowers, no champagne, no band, just a judge in a small, wood-panel room who pronounced us husband and wife. Afterwards, we went to a little diner around the corner and had cheeseburgers and milkshakes. It was simple, quiet, and absolutely, perfectly us. The contrast between the 2 days was stark. One was a public spectacle of family dysfunction, the other a private celebration of our love. One was about obligation and guilt, the other about choice and joy. Standing there in the diner, watching Anna laugh at something her dad said, I felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. This was my family now. This small, supportive, loving group of people. This was real. The legal situation with my parents is still pending. They've lawyered up, and their attorney has sent me a letter suggesting we discuss a resolution to avoid a trial. I haven't responded. They made their choices. If they want to drag this out, if they want to make me testify against them in court, then so be it. I have nothing to hide. My only regret is that Anna had to be dragged into this mess. But she has been my anchor, reminding me that we're in this together. Ethan's case is moving forward. From what I've gathered from news reports and conversation with the lead detective, the evidence against him is overwhelming. He faces decades in prison. When I heard that, A strange mix of emotions washed over me. Sadness for the brother I once had, the one who taught me to ride a bike. Anger for the man he became. And a profound, bone-deep relief that he would no longer be a shadow hanging over my life. Last night, I had a dream. I was a kid again, maybe 10 years old, standing on the shore near our old house. Ethan was there, 17, his hair bleached by the sun. He was laughing, teaching me how to skip stones. "Watch, Davy, you gotta flick your wrist just right." A stone he threw skipped 7 times across the calm water. I tried, and mine sank with a dull plop. He laughed again, not meanly, and put his arm around my shoulder. "Don't worry, little brother. You'll get it." I woke up with tears on my face. That boy is gone. He's been gone for a long time. The man who took his place was a stranger, a predator who wore my brother's face. Mourning the loss of that boy is the hardest part. It's a grief with no body, no funeral, no closure. This morning, Anna and I started planning our future. We talked about maybe moving out of the city, finding a small house with a garden. We talked about foster care, about maybe one day giving a home to a kid who needs one, a kid whose family has failed them, just like mine failed me. It felt good to look forward, to build something new on ground that was finally our own. For anyone who was where I was, stuck in the orbit of a toxic family, feeling the pull of guilt and obligation, here is what I've learned. Blood is not an excuse for cruelty. Family is not a free pass for abuse. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Walking away is not an act of betrayal. It is an act of survival. It will be the hardest thing you ever do. People will judge you. They will call you cold, unforgiving, heartless. Let them. They don't know your story. They don't know the weight you've been carrying. And one day, when you are standing in the sunlight, free and whole, you will realize it was worth it. It was always worth it. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even sad. I'm just ready for the next chapter. A chapter where the only drama is deciding what to have for dinner, and the only plot twists are happy ones. The wreckage of my past is still smoldering behind me, but I'm not looking back. I'm walking forward, hand in hand with my wife, towards a future that is ours alone.